Joining me now is Chuck Todd, moderator of Meet the Press. So, Chuck, let's talk about optics when it comes to former President Trump. Between the Coffee County investigation here in Georgia, special master, the New York Attorney General lawsuit. In terms of the midterms, do you think all of this will cast enough of a shadow to be a negative for the candidates that Trump has endorsed?
Well, it's been you look at the polling, Trump is definitely a net negative generally, and he's certainly a net negative with the group of voters that may decide these races in closely contested races, places like Georgia, North Carolina, Florida. So certainly with those persuadable voters he is. But, you know, it's a double-edged sword for Republicans when it comes to Donald Trump, because there is sort of a core 30% of the country that believes and loves everything he says and does. And in some ways, if you're not all in, they may not show up for you, candidate X or Y or whatever it is. So it certainly is one of these situations where I think all of this stuff is serving as a larger drag on the party. It's not helped with fundraising. It's not helped with voter enthusiasm. It's certainly been a distraction for the candidates, particularly those that ran and won with Trump's support. It is interesting to me that the candidates that have the least amount of connection to Trump on the Republican side of the aisle are the ones that are flourishing the most right now. Best example of that is Brian Kemp.
Yeah. And speaking of persuasions at the ballot box, let's talk about the interest rate up again for the fifth time this year alone. Another hike expected November 1st, just a week before the elections, but also at a time when we're seeing Democrats kind of making gains in the polling. I'm curious if you think the economy and threat of a recession kind of upstages some of the other hot button voter issues like abortion, for example.
You know, I really think it's state dependent, and that's what's been so amazing about these midterms is that, look, the election's been nationalized, but it's a different national issue depending on the state you live in. So do I think if the stock market crashes in a huge way in November and we're getting big spikes in our electric bills because of the war in Europe, you know, is that going to have an impact? Yes, I think it's going to have an impact. But different states, different issues are more front and center. You know, the state of Arizona, for instance, just had a court say that a 100-plus-year-old abortion ban is now on the books. So abortion and democracy issues are more front and center in Arizona. Crime has become a top issue in the Wisconsin Senate race. We see it percolating a bit even in the Georgia Senate race, definitely in Pennsylvania. So the point is that there's about 4 or 5 national issues that are resonating. And depending on the campaign that different folks are waging, it depends on which issues pop the most. Again, an economic shock towards the end could trump things, but I think in some ways the bad economy is already kind of priced into this election. So I think now it's all about execution of campaigns at this point.
Yeah, very true. We've certainly seen the impact of that in Georgia. Thanks, Chuck. Appreciate your input as always. And Meet the Press airs at 10 right after 11 Alive Weekend Morning News.